What's up, everyone? Welcome to the new episode of the Myles High Podcast. This is Myles Jr., your host. And as always, the vision and goal of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. Got a great, I probably say this all the time. I always say I got a great topic, but that's fine. Today is a great topic as well. Every topic is a good topic in my opinion. But I got something really, intriguing to talk about. This is something that I truly believe in, something that I practice myself, and it's just a conversation that I wanted to have, and some advice I wanted to give to you, my audience, today. Today I want to talk about unplugging. All right, I want to talk about unplugging. You know, we live in this technically advanced era where you know this technology boom that we're experiencing has caused the worlds that we live in to advance drastically, right? Everything that we do, we're able to do way more efficiently, able to do way more faster than we have ever been able to do them. And it's just made things a lot more easier for us, right? And, technology has brought us a number of benefits, right? And some of those benefits, and these are not all the benefits, but some of them include being able to connect with family and friends around the world, regardless of where we are and the time differences that exist. It's also allowed us to stay updated with our work and with the world around us, right? The news cycles, our jobs, the workloads that we have to do. Regardless of where we are, we're able to stay abreast to our responsibilities from a professional standpoint and issues going on in our nations and different regions of the world, around the world. It's also allowed an ease of business, right? The way that we do business and conduct business globally. Technology has allowed us to be able to do a whole lot more, right? Experience a whole lot more. It's opened the doors of business where there used to be barriers to entry or barriers to connectivity between countries. Technology has allowed us to knock those barriers down and really advance in the business world. And then technology, has allowed us to create new sources of income. I think this boom that we're experiencing, especially when we're talking about these social media platforms that have evolved over the last, 3 to 5 years, it has allowed individuals to monetize and make a living for themselves, and a good living, if you ask me, right? So it's allowed us to create new sources of income, to take care of ourselves, to take care of our families. But with every pro, there's a con, right? Every advantage that we experience in life, it's an equal disadvantage that we can experience. And like every muscle, our brain needs time to recover. I could remember, years ago, I grew into the habit of watching the news, right? I would, wake up in the morning, cut my television on, and put it on like CNN, some news channel, just to kind of, stay abreast of like what's going on in the world. And, I did that for maybe a few months or a few years. I can't remember exactly how long, but I guess I remembered realizing that, man, this news cycle is a bunch of negativity, right? It was a bunch of death, a bunch of trauma, a bunch of crisis, a bunch of corruption. All these different things that we experience in the world, they highlight on the news. And it's just this continuous cycle of the same news and information that we experience, right? And then you have these unforeseen crises, whether it's a mass shooting or some mass killing that happens where it just takes over the news for, a number of days. And it's the thing that we constantly hear. So I realized that, man, I'm feeding myself all of this negativity every day. And, as informed as I would have wanted to be or like to be, I started to realize that it just wasn't good. It wasn't good for me to continuously be feeding myself all of this negative information and these negative reports. So, I switched to sports news, right? So I would, instead of watching CNN or MSNBC, I kind of turned it to ESPN, FS1, Fox Sports, and started to watch these sports cycles, right? And obviously it's old news, right? Because everything that they report, unless it's breaking news, everything that they reported on these sports news cycles would be things that happened in the sports world the day before or the night before or whatever. But then I started to realize that, man, it's just a bunch of repetitiveness, right? So once you hit the news cycle in the morning, literally that's all they talk about for the rest of the day, regardless of the show, regardless of the personality. They give their opinions on things, on the same things that everyone is talking about. And man, I realized that I have to find something different. I have to do something different, right? Because it's good because I love sports and I love to, hear these different takes on different things that happen in the sports world around the globe. But it just wasn't becoming productive. It wasn't informative enough. It wasn't productive enough for me to, feel positive or feel good about doing it. And I just started to realize that, man, I needed to make a change. So I started to, instead of watching the news cycles or watching these sports news cycle, I started to listen to like motivational speeches and these things I could actually feed myself, right? And it was basically me unplugging from these various platforms that I allowed to feed myself and to feed me all of these information and news, but that really wasn't working at an advantage for me. And that's what I want to talk about, right? I want to start with mentioning the reasons why it's great to unplug, right? These are just a few reasons that I kind of highlighted of why we should unplug, right? The first is to combat FOMO, right? And FOMO is simply the fear of missing out. I feel like we, as human beings, like we want to stay connected because we always want to stay informed, right? We always want to be aware of like what's happening in the worlds around us, thinking that, man, if I'm missing out on the news, if I'm missing out on things that going on, I'm going to be left behind. I'm going to be missing out on like everything. All right. And so the second reason that it's great to unplug is to be in the moment, right? Always be in the moment. I'm an individual who, I like to go to watch games, live games, be it football, basketball games, or whatever it is. I like to go to concerts, these various concerts. I like to spend time with my family. I like to spend time with my friends. And one of the things that we realize is that we're always on our phones at these events, right? At the games, we're on our phones taking video and pictures of the games and the athletes that we're watching. At the concerts, we're taking videos of the moment that our favorite artists are on stage performing. And even when we're around friends and family, right, we're on our phones, right, trying to stay in touch or stay tapped into like what's going on around the world. And I've always been the type of person just to want to be in the moment, right? So very rarely when I go to games, concerts, spending time with friends and family, am I on my phone? I like to be in the moment. I like to experience the moment. I like to take these mental memories of the things that are happening around me. Not taking anything away from digital memories. I think digital memories are great, but I just think mental memories just it hits different, right? It lasts a little longer in our subconscious because it's an experience that we're having. And I think being in the moment, being there and present and aware of what's going on around us, instead of being there but focusing on our phone trying to record or capture the moment, I think it's important just to be present. And that's one of the reasons why, another reason why unplugging is so important. Another reason is, it allows us to separate ourselves from being consumers to being creators. I can't tell you the amount of times where I've, taken myself away from technology or these various digital platforms where I'm able to, spark my creativity. Right, it allows us to become creators, right? Not be so tapped into staying abreast and staying up to date on what's going on these various platforms, but it allows us to focus on the main thing, or what should be the main thing, which is our profession, which is bettering ourselves, and that usually allows us to be able to create. Right, we want to become creators and not just consumers. And I think if we are able to unplug ourselves, right? Detach ourselves from these devices and these platforms that seem to have a hold on us, have us in the chokehold for sure. I think it allows us to become more of a creative, right? Become creative individuals, and to come up with ideas that not only help us, in our personal life and professional life, but can also help those around us, right? Because these same platforms that we're using and making daily use of, the people that created these platforms are exactly those persons that were able to disconnect and come up with ideas on how to better the social experience that we have on the various platforms and various devices that we have, right? So I think each of us, maybe not all of us are created or made to be creators, but I think all of us create in our own special way, right? In our own area of gifting. And I think allowing ourselves to detach and unplug from these different platforms and focus in on our creativity, it allows us to be able to create that much better. And, finally, one of the last things, and this is something that works for me, you get to catch up on a lot of rest, right? You get to catch up on a lot of sleep. Individuals like myself, those of you out there who, always working, mind always going, you never really have a time to shut your mind off from thinking and creating. Unplugging from these devices and these various platforms just allows us to rest, man. The time that we need to re-energize ourselves, to rest our minds, rest our bodies. I find myself in bed and some nights just on my phone, just scrolling, right? Whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on TikTok, whether it's watching YouTube videos, or even just playing a game on my phone, right? I'm distracted. And I find myself, spending, 30, 45, 60 minutes while in bed, supposedly supposed to be going to sleep. But, so distracted by these devices that I'm not able to sleep how I want to sleep, right? As long as I want to sleep, or get the necessary sleep that I need. So I feel like detaching ourselves and unplugging from these platforms and these devices just allows us to catch up on the rest that we need, because rest is important, right? And especially the older that we get, we need to focus more on rest, because it allows our mind to rejuvenate, our bodies to rejuvenate. Rest is super important. So I feel the more we're able to unplug, the more sleep and rest we're able to have, right? So those are reasons why I feel that we should unplug, right? So let me share with you some ways that we can unplug, right? So how do we take advantage of unplugging? What can we do to ensure that we're setting ourselves up for success when it comes to detaching and unplugging from the distractions that we experience in life? So some of the ways that we can unplug is we can sleep with our device in a different room. Now, this is super difficult, right? I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I can say that I do this, right? But my wife is probably, who is here, she's probably going to put me on blast and be like, nah, bro, you absolutely don't. I do it, but I do it mistakenly sometimes. Like if I leave my phone like downstairs when I'm going up for bed and I'm too tired to go down and get it, like it just happens to be in a different room. But if you're able to, right, sleep with your device in a different room, I think it's advantageous for us to separate or sever these bonds or these ties that we have to our cell phones, to our iPads, to our laptops, to these things that seem to have us just in a bind, right? To have this hold on us that we just can't release. So I think creating those areas where we're creating the separation that we need, I think helps. Now, me, I use my phone as an alarm. So it's difficult for me to, sleep in one room with my device in the other. And for those of you who are going to say, like, you could always buy a clock or an alarm device, I ain't talking to y'all. Okay, we're talking about me using my cell phone. That is my story, ladies and gentlemen. I'm giving you the advice. This is one advice that I'm giving you that I'm probably never going to use, but someone out there may be able to take advantage of it. So that's why I'm mentioning it. Okay. The second advice is just have a social media fast. I tend to do this from time to time, right? Like I take breaks from checking on different social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, like any of these platforms. It just seems to cause us to keep scrolling, right? Scrolling through these timelines and laughing at things that are funny and catching up on these horrific news that make it to these different platforms. Just, have a fast, have a social media fast. A couple of maybe a couple of weeks ago or months ago, my wife told me that, I asked her a question, and I asked if she heard about this thing that I saw on the platform. She was like, no, I didn't hear about it. And I looked at her pretty strange. I was like, how did you not hear about this, right? Because you're usually up in your game when it comes to these type of things and these type of news. And she was like, oh, I deleted Twitter off of my phone. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you know my wife, Sharice, Twitter is her thing. You understand me? She doesn't go, like, any news that I hear about, like I would go there and be like, yo, you heard this? She'd be like, yeah, long time. Twitter is the news source for millennials in this new generation. I'm not that big of a Twitter guy. I don't tweet. I don't even scroll through Twitter. But she does. So for her to say that she took a fast, basically, she deleted X. Well, it's called X now. It's not Twitter, right? But same difference. So she deleted X off her phone. That's big, and she and I didn't even have a conversation about it. And I think, and I'll let you speak. You realize that I guess it was becoming a distraction, or it was just too much negativity.
It wasn't a distraction. It's just too negative, and it was just as when you consume too much negativity, you start to feel angry and anxious. And I didn't like the way that I was feeling, so I said that I needed a break, and I took a break, and I didn't miss anything. So it was just like, well, I could go 2 weeks. Well, maybe I could go 3 weeks and then 4 weeks. I mean, I'm back on Twitter now.
I was about to say, you didn't go,
or X.
You didn't go that long.
But it just shows you that it's not needed. It's not a necessity.
And I think it also shows us that we have control, right? I think it allows us to understand that we're not addicted to these many digital devices. So having a social media fast is good. I remember, back in college, there was these, few websites, these urban news websites that I would frequent, right? Media Takeout was one of them. I'm sure everyone in my generation know about this. World Star Hip Hop was another. Like, these were like websites where like you would just, you didn't even have a reason to, right? You just logged on and kind of scrolled through and like wasted a lot of time on these websites. And I remember like literally like telling myself like, bro, you have to stop. Like, you are paying too much attention and spending too much time on these websites where you could be doing like other things. So I decided to take a fast off of like those particular websites. And it started with 1 week, then went to 2, then it went to 3. And then I immediately realized that, man, life is literally so much better when I don't have to spend it on like scrolling through these different websites. And, like Sharice said, looking at these like negative news and negative things that are happening, or these like funny things. Yeah, they're funny and entertaining, but they're not beneficial to us, right? It doesn't feed into our productivity on a daily basis. So, me being able to socially fast off of those particular websites just showed me the discipline that I had to be able to do so, right? And how much these sites were just not needed, right? It wasn't necessary for me to like daily like check in and find out like what's going on. And I'm so much better now at it, right? I'm able to be way more focused. And I know like, over time, all of these platforms are going to change. Like, we probably don't even go on these websites as much as we do on the various platforms that are available on our phone, whether it's through Facebook or Instagram, TikTok, like, whatever that device is for you, right? Commit to socially fasting from these different platforms. I promise you, it's a way of unplugging. It's a way of focusing. It's a way of creating a positive space, a positive energy around you. And it's something that is needed. Okay. Another thing you can do, another way of unplugging, is to create no phone zones, right? So there are areas where you go to or things that you do where you say, I don't use my phone in these areas. One of those places for me is the gym, right? In the morning in the gym, So it's not a no phone zone, but it's like it's a productivity zone at the same time. So just as I'm feeding my body and like exercising and getting some work in the gym, I also want to feed my mind during those processes. So a lot of the times, even though I have my phone and I have my headphones in, I'm reading a book. Well, I'm listening to a book. I'm an audio book consumer. I love audiobooks. I get a lot of my reading done through listening to the audiobook versions of the books. And that's when I use that time in the gym to be able to do a lot of those readings. Now, I'm not always, listening to those books in the gym. Like sometimes I switch to music just to kind of, keep myself spontaneous, right? And just keep things lively and active, like while I'm in the gym. But for the most part, I use my gym time to read. Sometimes I even, in my car, I find myself not listening to anything, right? No audiobooks, no music, just driving around in silence. And sometimes I don't even recognize that I'm doing it until like 20, 30 minutes into my drive. And I'd be like, I don't have anything playing. And it's freeing, right? It feels so good. And I'm able, I'm used that time to just think and kind of go through like different things I need to sort out, either with my personal life, with my professional life. And I use that time to kind of be creative and think of ways that I can solve these minor issues, not nothing too major really. These minor issues, I use that time to try and think through them. So creating no phone zones, whether that's in your car, whether that's at the gym, my wife and I, we try to create no phone zones for date night, like when we go out, if we go out to eat for dinner or lunch, or if we go to whatever we do, whatever we decide to do for our date night, we try to commit to not having our phones in hands. I think it's much more easier for me to do than it is for my wife to do. She stays on the phone. Like sometimes I have to remind her and be like, hello, can you speak to me, please? I am right here. But for the most part, I think as long as, we're both on the same page and be able to create these boundaries where we're not showing this addiction to these devices, I think it allows us to just unplug and just be more focused and more productive in the things that we're doing. Another way to unplug is to set time limits. If it's hard for you to socially fast, cold turkey off these different devices and these different platforms, just set time limits, daily time limits. The more we're able to constrict ourselves from these devices and these platforms, I think again, the more productive we'll be able to create the more productivity we'll be able to create for ourselves. My wife and I have this back and forth a lot. She has this nephew that spends some times with us, especially on the weekends. And, there'll be days where, he has his iPad and he's on his iPad from he wakes up to before he goes to sleep. And I look at it and I'd be like, you just let him be on his iPad like the entire day. And, her reasoning is, go ahead, babe.
My reasoning is that...
Go ahead. What's your reasoning?
My reasoning is I don't have any kids. But the reason is everything is in their iPad for them. They have Google Hangouts with their friends, so they're playing games together. They're reading books together. They are doing everything on these iPads with their friends. So back in the day, we did the same thing, but we just did it in a different way. So when they were outside playing, they are now on their iPads playing. Their TV is now on their iPad instead of on the TV. So their iPad is everything to them. It's just like how you read your audiobooks on your phone. You've made it your alarm, your games. It's the same thing for them. So I try not to be too hard. LeRon, you want to say something?
But they get like the laptop experience without motor skills for laptop.
Exactly.
I agree. And I mean, to be honest, in my opinion, they are so much more advanced because of it. And so I try to balance it, but honestly...
You don't. You do not balance at all.
I don't know.
So, and I think when we were growing up,
what you want from me.
Our parents used to tell us, that's enough screen time. And I think that's all it's about, right? Like, I don't have anything against the iPad and being on the iPad, but bro, take 3 hours off and go do something else. Like, go do something constructive. Like, do something that doesn't have you like staring at your device for hours on hours, regardless if you're switching through like things that you're doing. But find something else to do. So like what we started to do with him was we started to play games. Like we play Uno. We talk to him, like we have like real conversations with him, like ask questions and get him to answer these questions. And it's all to like break him out of the cycle of like always wanting to be glued to his iPad, right? Now, my wife and I don't have any kids as yet, right? And a lot of my friends who have kids, like the one thing that they say is like, bro, you saying you don't want your kids on these iPads, but all right, you just wait. You wait till you start having kids. You can't wait to shove an iPad in their face because, you know, kids are inquisitive.
Talk a lot. Always
like talk, you know what I mean? So to kind of shut the kids up, they would just like, yeah, take this and go sit down somewhere and just go look at the screen. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to do that, but I'm really going to be focused about the amount of screen time my kids get, right? So it's definitely going to be on a time limit. So I think setting time limits for ourselves, you know, for our kids, for our friends, well, maybe not for our friends are adults, but definitely for ourselves and our kids. And just find other productive things that we can do.
We will circle back to this conversation in a few years when the child wants to go outside and play softball or soccer and the sun is too hot and you don't want to go.
No, I'm there.
We will come back and have this conversation again.
I can't talk about it. I got to be about it, right? So I could be right over there with my kids outside, throwing the ball around and doing whatever we need to do that allows us to limit the amount of screen time that they're getting. All right. Another way that we could unplug is to turn off unimportant notifications, right? So all those notifications you get with, you know, this person posted this or commented on this or liked this, or, you know, you get a message on WhatsApp or Facebook from a friend and you get a notification, just turn those notifications off, right? And even if you have to say, look, I'm going to turn these notifications off between the hours of 9 and 6 or whatever that interval is, like, do it, right? Because I think if you're not notified or pegged to look at your device because something pops up on your screen, then it'll help you to be able to unplug, right? So turn off unimportant notifications.
Well, I mean, you also get help now because Apple devices have the snooze or whatever that notification
do not disturb.
is, the do not disturb, that you get no notifications.
Yeah, so I think, you know, these phone companies understand the addiction that human beings are experiencing with these devices, so they're trying to do their part. But you really have to go into your phone and like set those things up, right? And if a lot of people don't even know that it's possible, but I think it's good again to like put limits on these, the time that you're spending, the notifications you're receiving as much as you can, so that you can unplug. All right. Another thing, and speaking of these companies, you can track your time, right? So when Apple first released, because I'm an iPhone user, guys, no disrespect to any Android users out there, like kudos to you guys, but unfortunately, I understand. But for Apple users, I'm sure all phones have these capabilities where you can see the amount of time that you're spending on the different apps that you have on your phone. You know, once Apple released the capabilities of us to do that, I was shocked. I was shocked about the amount of time that I was spending on the various apps, right? And just, it kind of made things real for me, right? Because sometimes we just don't realize how much time we're spending on our phones, right? Until the numbers tell us that story. And I realized, like, man, I'm spending 800 hours on this unproductive app where I'm not getting anything out of it, right? Okay, time to make some change. So it allowed me to like really focus on like being more productive, right? So, you know, it's similar to like if you're dieting, right? Or you want to lose weight or gain muscle or like whatever it is you're trying to do when it comes to exercising in your diet. And you set these boundaries, right? Whether you're on a limited amount of calories that you're going to consume in a day, or amount of times that you're going to work out in a week, the type of workouts that you're going to do. In the same way, like you want to do the same thing when it comes to tracking your time on these devices. So whether that's limiting your time on various apps, limiting your time on the devices entirely. Do these things so that, again, you can unplug and be better with your focus. All right. And then lastly, just take a digital fast completely, right? Take a fast of using your phone. And I usually do this at the top of the year when I have my fast, right? I fast for, be it 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. And during that period of fasting for me, I'm not watching TV. I'm not, spending unproductive time on my phone. Like if it doesn't have anything to do with work, like I'm really using that time to feed myself with positive information, watching positive videos, learning something to feed my personal man, my professional man, and my spiritual man. So, taking a digital fast is something that I think all of us should do and commit to on if not a yearly basis. You can break it down into a day a week or a week a month, or like whatever time period you want to do it. But make sure you're doing things to ensure that you're unplugging from the world, because again, we need this time so that we can refocus, we can relax, we can rejuvenate our mind and our bodies, and not continue to feed ourselves these negativities, right? And again, I think if we can incorporate unplugging into something similar to like exercising or, dieting or, waking up and taking a shower, right? As consistent as you're doing those essential things, let's make unplugging one of those essentials. And I promise you're going to see yourself being way more productive. And again, these are just things that I've recognized and experienced in my life, and I've made some changes, and I wanted to bring that discussion to you just to introduce, if you haven't heard it before, or to give you some steps on how to do it. Because unplugging is important, unplugging is necessary. All right. So we've reached a portion of the episode now where I leave with you a milestone. This week's milestone ties into the topic of unplugging. And the milestone is simply life happens between Wi-Fi signals. Simple as that. So if you hit that space where you don't have any signal, like everyone, we go out and we say, man, you go to a restaurant and you don't have like data on your phone. The first thing you ask the waitress is, hey, you guys got Wi-Fi? What's your Wi-Fi password? Life happens between Wi-Fi signals. So I think, the principle behind that is to ensure that we're turning the signals off. Ensure that we're unplugging. Unplugging is necessary because sometimes we can miss life because we're so connected. And I think connectivity is great. Connectivity does well for our networks and our building ourselves in various ways. But being disconnected is important too. So I think just as much as we're staying connected, we need to disconnect. So ensure that we're living our lives, especially when we don't have any Wi-Fi signals. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this pod. This was a good one. I think I've been able to share, some of my experience and hopefully some good advice for you to take home and apply to yourselves. All right. So as always, the vision and goal of this pod is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. So until next time, you guys stay blessed.